By now, we've all seen the new 2021 Ford Bronco. And you know what? It looks pretty freaking cool. I don't go camping very often. I don't own a single piece of Patagonia clothing. Hell, I hate hiking. But man, do I want to get out in nature in this thing. The Bronco is an icon, an OG in the sport utility vehicle game. And it had a rival, one that was also recently rebooted. But unlike the Bronco, nobody really cared about this remake. Why does the Bronco slap, but not the Blazer? Today, we're going to look at a few things Chevy might have done wrong, but also why those mistakes might not matter. Be nice. I'll see you next time. Big thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this episode of Wheelhouse. You know, I'm a pretty busy guy. That's why I can only talk to you while I'm on set. But after I pop in my Raycon Everyday E25 earbuds, I drift into automotive bliss. Raycons come in lots of cool colors so I can coordinate them to my shorts, sort of. And the best part is, they cost half as much as other premium earbuds, but sound just as good, which is why my celebrity friends like Snoop Dogg and Melissa Etheridge also rock Raycons. When I pop these Raycon E25s in, people know not to bother me on set.
Hey, Nolan! You can't just say be nice and see you next time. We gotta write the rest of the episode. Nolan!
If you want to rock your own Raycon Everyday E25s, head on over to buyraycon.com/donut for 15% off. That's buyraycon.com/donut. Or hit the link in the description for 15% off your Raycons. Get some today. The crossover SUV has taken over the market here in the US, so it can be hard to remember what SUV stood for in the first place. Sport, utility, vehicle. Keyword being sport. While the SUVs of today are based on either truck platforms or their own unibody bodies, the original SUVs were a little more sporty. I'm talking off-roaders. The ancestor of the entire segment is the Jeep, specifically the CJ5. The Kaiser Corporation released the Jeep CJ5 in 1955. It was designed to be more comfortable for the growing number of people who were gaining interest in a growing scene called off-roading. The CJ5 was just as capable off-road as its militarized counterpart, but more usable in the day-to-day. This was great because people could drive their Jeep to work during the week, then go hit the trails on the weekend with the same vehicle.
Bringing fun and recreation to millions. It is used by hunters, fishermen, and campers to reach places inaccessible to the ordinary car.
This practicality paved the way for off-roading to become America's latest automotive craze in the mid-50s. Events like the Jeep Jamboree showed manufacturers that there was a demand for off-road capable vehicles, not just the Jeep. One car maker answered the call in 1961, and it wasn't one of the big three. International was known more for their tractors than any sort of passenger vehicle, but in 1960 they dropped what could be considered the first sport utility vehicle, the Scout 80. It was meant to be extremely practical and reliable, a true workhorse that International said would, quote, replace the horse. International, it's 1960, okay? I'm pretty sure the horse has already been replaced. Get a clue. With a bunch of roof types available and a pickup style bed, the Scout lived up to expectations, and International built over 100,000 of them in 5 years. With the tractor making selling that many road cars, it was official. The trend was real, or at least would be. Ford was kind of caught with their pants down and needed an SUV of their own to fill the gap. Believe it or not, Ford actually had their own off-roader before the Bronco was a twinkle in anyone's eye. Like Kaiser and International, Ford was deeply involved in military manufacturing and as a result had their own version of the Jeep called the Military Utility Tactical Truck, or MUT. Like Kaiser and International, Ford figured the people would want a capable off-roader in the spirit of a military vehicle that was comfortable enough to drive to the grocery store. But Ford wanted to go even further than International and would target their competitors' flaws. In 1962, Ford pulled a gangster move and surveyed Jeep and Scout owners, asking them what they did and didn't like about their cars. What they found out was that contemporary off-roaders had crap ride quality, were down on power, and had horrible road noise. Ford saw a real need to be filled and got to work on their own SUV in October of 1963. They must have really been leaning into naming cars after horses like the Mustang, because the new project was given the code name Bronco. Apparently there's a real barnyard vibe going on over there in Dearborn. The first Bronco sketches were done by designer McKinley Thompson, the first African-American auto designer at Ford. The engineering team spent about a year after that honing the Bronco into a practical off-road superstar, a car that Ford would have to coin an all-new term for: sport utility vehicle. We talked about earlier SUVs, but this was the first one to actually be called that. Upon release in 1965, the Bronco came in 3 distinct versions for every buyer's wants and needs. There was the convertible style Bronco Roadster, the sport utility with a bed like the Scout, and the wagon with a tailgate and full roof. The variety really makes me think about the state of the market today. Can you imagine if someone came out with a convertible SUV right now? It'd sell like 200 of them. I was gonna make a joke about the Nissan Murano Cross Cabriolet sales figures, but it looks like Nissan actually includes those with the regular Murano numbers, so there's not a reliable way to tell how many of those things they actually sold. Very sneaky, Nissan. Anyway, to help market the Bronco, Ford leaned into marketing the lifestyle, offering accessories like snowplows and winches. The addition of a V8 engine option in 1966 meant the Bronco now had a lot more kick, which meant it was great for off-road racing. The Bronco ate up wins at legendary events like the Mint 400 and the Baja 1000. Along with adventure, racing prowess was now a huge part of the Bronco mythos, and it had only been around for a few years. The truth is, the Bronco could have been around for only one generation, and it would have been remembered by Ford fans forever. But lucky for the blue oval, the idea of the SUV had a lot of staying power. The Bronco wouldn't be the last sport utility vehicle to come out of Detroit. After watching Ford get caught with their pants down and develop their own Froder for the masses, Chevy realized their shorts were on the floor as well, and scrambled to make their own fashionable four-wheeler. Because Chevy was chasing Ford, they didn't have the luxury of starting from the ground up like the Bronco team did. Instead, Chevy adapted their existing CK truck platform for fun-having duties. Chevy's SUV went by the name Blazer, and since it was basically a smaller truck, it was bigger than the Bronco in nearly every metric, which isn't exactly what you want off-road, but since it came standard with four-wheel drive and was visually impressive, Chevy fans were stoked regardless. The Bronco and Blazer duked it out in epic combat for years, with Ford actually mirroring Chevy by moving the Bronco onto the F100 truck platform in 1978. It was probably a lot cheaper to manufacture than the standalone platform of the first gen. So the Bronco was becoming less of what made it so revolutionary, but that didn't really matter because people were buying them. Bronco sales reached their peak in 1979 with more than 104,000 sold. But with the fallout of the second gas crisis that same year, the American public started demanding more fuel-efficient options. In a strange example of parallel thinking, both Ford and Chevy released a smaller, fuel-sipping variant of their full-size SUVs. Chevy debuted the S10 Blazer, based on the S10 truck, in 1982, and Ford followed suit, introducing the Bronco 2, based on the Ranger small truck, in 1983. The rivalry had gone from full-size to eeny-meeny, but both of these mini versions were much smaller than the full-size offering, and in some way helped recapture the original SUV spirit. They were still four-wheel drive, they had 2 doors, but their smaller stature made them more maneuverable off-road. Unfortunately for Ford though, the Bronco 2 was not long for this world. From the beginning, the Bronco was doomed to fail. Engineers working on the SUV found that the Bronco 2 had an unusually low stability index, which is calculated using the car's center of gravity and the track width of the tires. Long story short, the Bronco 2 was prone to rollovers, but instead of fixing the problems, Ford leadership rushed the car into production, planning on fixing the issues later. But the cat was out of the bag when the car went to market, and according to Ford, they faced over 100 lawsuits related to the Bronco 2, and they settled in 50 of them. Time magazine reported in 2001 that Ford had spent $2.4 billion in damages through all these lawsuits, and was apparently paying out settlements as late as 2012. These lawsuits are why the Bronco 2 only lasted for 6 years and was replaced by the Explorer, which had its own rollover issues. At this time, SUV sales were exploding throughout the industry, but the Bronco was having an increasingly difficult time justifying its existence within the Ford lineup. Larger four-door models like the Explorer and Expedition gave buyers a lot more room without compromising on a tough-looking exterior. A lot of people say the whole O.J. Simpson chase killed the Bronco, but it was simple economics. It wasn't making money. So, in 1996, the Bronco was killed and presumably rendered into glue. The Blazer lived on, living a somewhat confusing life. It got bigger, and Chevy renamed it to the Tahoe. They redesigned the S10 Blazer and dropped the S10 part of the name in 95. Then in 99, they added the Trailblazer trim, which became its own model in 2002. The Blazer proper was killed in 2005, and the Trailblazer followed in 2009, thus ending a 40-year rivalry. I have to think that without the Bronco around, which was the sole reason of the Blazer's creation, that it had a hard time staying focused, and thus had a harder time fitting in the Chevy lineup. It's sad. Pretty much as soon as Ford killed the Bronco back in '96, Bronco fans were clamoring for a new one, and surprisingly, they didn't have to wait very long. At the 2004 North American International Auto Show, Ford showed off a brand new Bronco concept. They were on a major retro kick around that time. The S197 Mustang looked like the first-gen Mustang, the Thunderbird looked like this, and the SVT team was cooking up a new GT supercar to celebrate the 40-year anniversary of their Le Mans victory. It made sense for a Bronco to be in that lineup. I never really thought about it until researching this episode, but man, the Bronco was a huge part of the Blue Oval's cultural domination of the 60s. If we think of Ford vehicles like Mario Party, for example, the Mustang is Mario, the GT40 is Toad because they're small and fast, the Bronco is Bowser, and the Thunderbird is Waluigi because he looks weird. It looked like the gang was getting back together, and better than ever. The Bronco concept had a 2-liter turbo diesel and a nitrous system to boost power. What the hell? It also had a few key throwback features like an open roof and circular headlights, and of course 4-wheel drive. Unfortunately for Bronco heads, it wasn't to be. Gas would get more expensive, smaller crossover SUVs were about to take over, and a recession was gonna hit. So the 2004 Bronco concept never worked out, but it did give people hope that a new one would happen eventually. And it did. On July 13th of this year, Ford took to the airwaves on 3 separate TV networks to play 3 separate mini docs on the Bronco, and then finally unveiled it for the 2021 model year. I didn't watch all the documentaries except for that 11-minute reveal video, and I wasn't the only one either. A lot of you probably saw it too. It hit number 1 on the trending page, and as of right now, it's got more than 3 million views, or about 6 times as many as our 50th episode got, which I don't understand. It had original music. I wore a wig. It should have killed. Anyway, for the next couple of days, you couldn't escape the Bronco hype machine. There wasn't collective stoke like this for a new car since the C8 Corvette, and honestly, I don't think there will be for a while. But why? Well, let's look at the dang thing. It's clear that Ford is trying to capture the spirit of the original Bronco. The 2021 has a removable roof and doors and will be available with either 2 or 4 doors, a first for the Bronco. In that reveal, Ford says that the original Bronco, quote, reshaped the 4x4 landscape forever, and that the new one is going to do it again. That's some very big talk. If you're a bit cynical like me, you might expect all the glorification of the outdoors present in the reveal video to be just talk, but doesn't look like that's the case. Lots of companies like to employ lifestyle branding. For example, I don't know, knives. Here's a 7-inch combat knife by Ontario. If you go on their website, you'll see their combat knives staged on some camo netting with an American flag. I saw that and was like, hell yeah, that lifestyle is badass. I live a badass lifestyle. I'm gonna buy a knife. In reality, I'm not a badass. I've never been in combat with my knife. It just sits next to my bed and I'm in the worst shape of my life. If I kill anyone, it's gonna be by smothering my girlfriend after I eat a big meal and I fall asleep on her. The point is, the branding worked. Just quick note, Joe snuck that line in on me and I'm not happy about it. And if I actually do kill someone, people like to feel like they're part of a lifestyle even if they really aren't. And that's okay, I have no problem with that, as long as the product that is marketed in that way can back it up. And the Bronco, I think it can. I won't dive too deep into the marketing materials for the Bronco. If you want to know all the specs and features, you can look those up on your own. But what I will say is that this thing has crazy ground clearance, crazy approach and departure angles, and crazy good torque, all from the factory. I mean, I haven't driven it yet, but from what I've read from people who have, the Bronco is the real deal. But besides the numbers and figures, what really trips me out about this machine is how closely the reveal and rollout matches the original. When the first one dropped, America was in the beginning of the first off-road craze. I would argue that we're in the beginning of another one right now. I don't know about you, but I've been feeling pretty damn cooped up. I don't even like camping that much, but after watching that reveal, I could definitely go for that right now. I think we're seeing a resurgence in enjoying the great outdoors. Not to mention the huge trend that is overlanding, which has a lot to do with putting a tent on top of your rig and getting 6 shots for the gram. The Bronco seems prime for that sort of thing. In '65, the Bronco had 3 distinct versions depending on what you needed, and guess what? They did that again. They've got the 2-door, the 4-door, and the Sport, a smaller vehicle which does not share the same platform as the 2-door and 4-door, but still looks very interesting. My buddy Jason lives out in Tahoe. He just got a mountain bike, he rock climbs and drives a Subaru Outback. The Bronco Sport was aimed squarely at people like Jason. What up, Jason? Another interesting parallel is the appeal to motorsports credibility. Just like how Ford gave factory support to off-road racers back in the 60s, a Skunk Works division within Ford built their own Bronco Baja 1000 racer called the Bronco R, and it actually competed in the 2019 running last November. Ford wanted to commemorate the 50th anniversary of their first Baja win, but it didn't go exactly to plan. There was a huge rainstorm the day before the race, which turned the entire course into mud, which caused a lot of issues, and a competing vehicle actually landed on the Bronco during their run. After spending hours in the pits to fix their issues, the Bronco R finished second to last, 37 seconds before the official cutoff time. It's a bummer, but I think they'll do better next time, right? Something that didn't parallel the original Bronco's rollout is worth mentioning. Ford was late to the game. Chevy already had a contender waiting for their old rival. Actually, Chevy had 2 of them. The Blazer and Trailblazer were already back. At the very end of 2018, Chevy began selling the new Blazer, and in April of last year, its little brother, the Trailblazer, followed. So Chevy beat Ford to market this time, but did they hit the same nostalgia mark? I'm gonna put a picture of the Chevy cars next to some pics of the Broncos. Do you see a difference? Look, I'm sure they're great cars, but when that Bronco video dropped, Chevy must have shit their pants. The Blazers just don't have it. The Blazer proper looks like a Camaro, and the Trailblazer's a little small boy. I won't make any bones about it. The new Blazer and Trailblazer were not designed with the same philosophy as the new Bronco. Chevy might lead you to believe that with the Trailblazer Active and the outdoorsy vibe the webpage puts off, but there's really nothing off-road centric about this car besides the all-wheel drive, some hand-cooked sport terrain tires, and revised suspension tuned for gravel roads. It's not a serious off-roader. The same goes for the Blazer. The sportiest version is the RS. It's got a V6 and looks like a Camaro. I've read that this thing was basically supposed to drive like a V6 Camaro SUV, and it succeeds at doing that. It's unfortunate that the Blazer name is being used for something other than off-road prowess, like the Bronco, but I think there's a good reason Chevy is fine with doing that. These cars are selling. In the first quarter of this year, Chevy sold over 22,000 Blazers, just a little less than the last quarter of last year. And on top of that, the Trailblazer is doing really well too. According to iCar.com, new Trailblazers spend an average of 19 days on dealership lots before being sold, making them the fastest selling cars in America. Why is that? Well, these Chevys might not be off-road beasts like the Bronco, but I've read that they're a very good value. And with the crazy demand for crossovers like the Blazer and Trailblazers, that's what gets people to the dealership. Would I want to see Chevy turn the Blazer into something that could take on the Bronco? Yes. Do I also understand why they didn't? Also, yes. So that's the episode. If you like this video, we put out videos almost every day here on Donut, so please consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you're watching this on Facebook, go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. We just hit 4 million subscribers, which is crazy, but we want to get more. Follow Donut on all social media at Donut Media. Follow me at Nolan J. Sykes if you want to see cool pictures that I post and read dumb that I think of. Be kind. I'll see you next time.